Hey everyone, and welcome to the COPSE Crossroads project. COPSE is a group of graduate students based at the University of Wyoming that are interested in the use of art-science crossover projects in education. Crossroads is the first project of our group, and we are really excited to be working with you. So let's get started. There are a few important aspects of the Crossroads project that you'll need to understand as we move forward. First, what do we mean by scale? When we use the word scale in this project, we are referring to size and the changes thereof. For example, during this presentation, we will start with the field of genetics, the study of which takes place on such a small scale that you often can't observe the physical components of it. And we will go all the way to the study of star formation, which takes place on an extremely large scale. A simple diagram of a changing scale is the progressively growing circles at the top of this slide. Second, what are fractal patterns? Fractals are complex patterns that are self-similar across different scales. This essentially means that they are patterns that repeat themselves as they get larger or smaller. Though these patterns can at first seem unrecognizable or fantastical, they are actually found all throughout nature, with a few different examples seen here, both purple cabbage and lightning. In fact, these patterns serve as a common thread throughout many different fields, and even bridge science and art. Fractals are one of the many representations that even seemingly dissimilar topics, such as genetics and ceramics, are in fact unavoidably linked to one another. We see fractal patterns across a variety of disciplines, including in what I study. I'm a graduate student in botany at the University of Wyoming, and I study the genetics of wildflowers and the microbes present on them. My main questions revolve around whether the rareness of a plant, specifically looking at the extent of land that a plant can be found over, has a significant effect on the plant's genetic diversity and on the microbes that are present on their leaves. This is important because understanding genetic diversity and microbial interactions can help with population survival in changing climates. There are a few places that I see fractals in my field and in my work, despite the fact that a lot of what I do you can't view with the naked eye and actually use computers to visualize. The picture on the slide with the green background shows what happens when you lyse, or pop open, an E. coli bacterial cell. The yellow fractal pattern around the orange cylindrical cell in the middle is actually bacterial DNA. Also, I work with a specific part or location in bacterial DNA called the 16S rRNA gene, which is depicted here on the right. We use this pattern of DNA in this region to identify what microbes are present in any given sample. As you can see, the structure of this region of the bacterial genome resembles a fractal pattern itself.
Hi, my name is Allie, and I study how plants and the microorganisms that live around them interact with each other. My research asks the question, how do plants talk with the microbes that live around their roots? First, I use genetics to look at microbes that live around the plant roots. Then chemistry to look at the chemicals that the plant roots give off that they may be using to talk with the microbes in the soil. Microorganisms can be very important in keeping a plant happy and healthy. Plants that live in different kinds of soils can have different microbes that live around them, and this can affect the health of the plant. So knowing how plants communicate with the microbes in the soil of different places can help us understand why plants grow in the places that they do and how we can make the plants healthier using microbes. In my research, I see fractal patterns everywhere. I see patterns in the genetics data I use to look at what microbes are there, like in this heat map. I see patterns in my data that often repeat. And when I make graphs and figures to see these patterns, they can look very similar to the repeated patterns that we see in fractal patterns. When I look at the soil, I can see fractal patterns from crystals made by the different chemical components in the soil, like salts and metals and organic matter. So the pattern, if you just look at how the crystals, the atoms of the crystal line up, it will have basically the same shape as when the crystal grows and gets bigger. And I also see fractal patterns in plant roots and plant leaves and plant flowers. So in the picture here, you can see the plant roots, how they just grow and branch. And in plant leaves, you can see the growing, branching, repeating patterns of the veins that go through the plant leaves. And in plant flowers, you see something very similar, where you'll have the repeated patterns of the petals and the formation of the petals. And it's all really, really cool.
Hi, my name's Theodora, and I am a PhD student in astronomy. I study supermassive black holes that live at the center of galaxies. A black hole is this object that is supermassive, but crammed into a tiny little space so that it has a really, really strong gravitational force so that nothing can escape from it, not even light. These black holes that I study are on a scale of hundreds of millions of times the mass of the sun. So you take our sun, multiply it by hundreds of millions, and that's how much these black holes weigh. And also these black holes are only about as big as the distance between the Earth and the sun. And that might sound like a pretty big area, but in the context of the universe, it's tiny. Specifically, I study what the hot gas that is close to the black hole is like. What we see on this slide here in the bottom left of the slide is the very first picture anyone took of a black hole. In this middle, you can see this black shadowy circle. That's the black hole, because no light can escape from it, so it's black. In this picture up here, on the upper right-hand side of the slide, is a picture of the whole galaxy that black hole is in. You can see it's so bright. That brightness is pretty much all from just the black hole. I specifically look at black holes using spectroscopy. So that part of the black hole that I look at is really close into the black hole. It's these clouds of gas that are close in. So close that we don't have good enough telescopes to take a picture of it. So what we do is we take the light that comes from the black hole and split it up into all its different wavelengths. This is the same thing that happens when you look at a rainbow. And we study the different lines and peaks and valleys and stuff that are happening at all these different wavelengths to tell us about what's happening with this gas around the black hole. I study the broad line region. These lines are really broad in spectroscopy. And so that's where the gas that I'm studying comes from. Where I see fractals in my work is I think it's really cool looking at this spectrum up here. And you can see that it's kind of these repeating patterns, right? There's the peaks, and then there's the troughs, and then there's the peaks, and then there's the troughs. And as you zoom in even more and more, it just keeps looking like that and keeps repeating. The other place I see it in my research is that the big question that I'm asking is there any kind of order or pattern or structure to the gas in the broadline region? Because right now, as far as we know, it seems like chaos. But we know that that can't quite be true. So my research is focused on looking for patterns. Specifically, what are patterns that I see in the spectra that can maybe tell me about where I might see fractal patterns in the gas in the broadline region.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Austin, and I'm a graduate student in computer science with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in graphic design. My research focuses on the use of artfully designed virtual reality and how it can be used in medical settings to improve both physical and mental health. Coming from an art background and now being in the computer science field, I see fractal patterns everywhere. One of my favorite examples that I see in the computer science field that also ties in with art is recursion. A recursive function is a function that calls on itself. And a well-known example of recursion is the Fibonacci sequence that you can also see in many famous paintings as the Fibonacci spiral or the golden ratio. Where I recognize patterns in my own work ranges from digital illustrations to different effects on watercolor on paper to even my 3D modeling work that I do for VR design. Certain textures that I'm able to create, such as the Voronoi pattern, are also based on mathematical equations to replicate these fractals and patterns. So now that we've given you all these examples of this same pattern that we see throughout these different fields, why do we care? Well, one reason is that we notice these patterns. Finding patterns is an extremely important part of any research. Patterns turn into predictions. By looking for something that we can predict, it makes it easier to find information or even to predict what should come next because it follows a pattern. For example, if you're studying DNA, these fractal structures show you the pattern of DNA, the structure of genes. If you're looking at a tree data structure in computer science, you can tell where certain data information will be stored because it follows a predictable pattern. Another reason why patterns are so important is because they are found throughout all different fields. Patterns are a way of connecting different fields and ideas. The Fibonacci sequence is something that is found in nature that is also being used in computer science as a more effective way of writing code. And it is also used in art, where past famous artists have realized that the sequence and pattern in nature creates an aesthetically pleasing effect that captivates the viewer's eye and can be manipulated to create different emotions in different works. As the next phase of the COPSE Crossroad project, you will be creating your own art around fractal patterns. We want you to recognize these patterns in the world around you and find how they relate to different fields across different scales. We look forward to seeing what you create, and good luck.